Welcome to the launch of STLR, PMA's survey training and learning resources. We are so excited to share these tools with you. They are accessible right now on PMA's website. And today we'll look together at where they came from, how to use them, and the value that they could bring to your work. Today's webinar is being held in both English and French with live interpretation available. So to ensure that you can follow the webinar in both languages, please join your preferred language channel in Zoom by clicking on interpretation and then selecting the language. Reminder that we'll have both English and French speakers. So please, my dear Anglophones, you will also want to join a language channel. My name is Sarah Nerling, and I'll be moderating our exchanges today. I worked with PMA for almost 8 years as an organizational learning consultant supporting PMA's learning efforts. I'll be joined today by Fiacre Bazier, the survey operations lead for the PMA Francophone Hub at ISSP at the Université Joseph Kizerbo, as well as Shani Turk, the family planning technical advisor at JPIGO. Both Shani and Bazier were instrumental in creating, leveraging, and improving these stellar tools that we are offering to you starting today. And to start us off, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Phil Englevich, PI at PMA and director of the William H. Gates Senior Institute for Population and Reproductive Health at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Phil was unable to join us today, but he has recorded a video for us. So over to you, Phil.
Hi, everyone. I'm Phil Englevich, the PI of PMA, and I want to welcome you all to the launch of PMA's survey training and learning resources. So as I hope many of you know, PMA has collected representative data from 11 geographies worldwide and collected information on sexual reproductive health, family planning, contraceptive use for more than a decade now. So PMA's high quality data has helped decision makers to understand what's working in programs and policies, what's not, and enabling decisions that are sensitive and responsive to evolving needs. But another key theme of what PMA has accomplished over this period is related to learning. So PMA has been training interviewers and supervisors and a whole host of other individuals as part of the data collection process for, again, more than 10 years. And over this period, we've accumulated a huge amount of intellectual resources that represent the contribution of dozens of people around the world. And at this point, we're addressing a gap in the field where this type of training guidance is generally missing. So this survey training learning resource is a first step towards this, and we hope you enjoy this this presentation. That is our release of this information for the field. So we hope that sharing these tools will benefit other researchers, facilitators, and survey implementers as they plan trainings and encourage staff learning. And want to thank all of you for joining today, and hope you enjoy this session. Thanks very much.
Great. Thank you, Phil. So these great tools that fill this gap, what are they? So STLR, Survey Training and Learning Resources. Let's talk about what it is and what it's not. STLR is a suite of tools that is bilingual. There's bilingual accessibility. So we collaborate with partners in both Anglophone and Francophone countries. So for us, as for many of you, it's probably important that our tools are in both English and French, which is also filling a critical gap in some of the needs for practical training tools in both languages. These tools have also been created with pedagogical backing. As a learning expert, I've contributed my pedagogical expertise around adult learning to the design of these tools, working with those in different parts of the PMA organization and around the world. These tools are also tested and improved They've been tested and improved over time with use and with a lot of feedback from PMA teams across 3 continents. These tools can support your enumerator trainings as well as your structured learning efforts. So we've got some great enumerator training tools. Also, anything that you are doing to support your team's learning, we have learning tools as well. And these are tools that are ready right now for you to adopt, adapt, and improve. But to be clear, Stellar is not everything. What is Stellar not? Well, it's not a university degree. It's meant to provide you with, in the case of enumerator trainings, the materials that you might have to create anyways, but it gives you a big step up. Look at our tools, adopt, adapt, and improve. It encourages you to support structured learning through our suite of learning tools as well. It's also not a perfect set of tools that was built with this large audience in mind. So these are tools that we built for ourselves at PMA and our purposes. We've generalized and toned down the acronyms a bit, but these are not resources that were built with or fully adapted to generic use by any team, which is why we say adopt, adapt, and improve. These give you a step up to continue to be strong in what you do the way that you need to do it. So let's look at what it looks like to access and browse the Stellar tools. The Stellar page is easy to use. You go to the PMA website, you click on Stellar Training and Learning, and you see we have English and French options. So if you scroll down this page, you'll see that you can browse the tools. You can also discover tools related to these critical 5 categories. And you'll see each of these categories as you browse through this initial Stellar page. So let's say we want to look at training design and facilitation tools. We explore these tools. We can see all of the tools in that category here. Maybe we want to look at the facilitator's card, and we can see a description and download it in English and or in French right there. Okay, if we go back to the Stellar main page, let's look at that Browse All Tools button. We click on that, we see all of the tools that are currently released with Stellar on this page. We hope to release more and they will be visible here. And then maybe we want to look at the search bar as well. Maybe I want to search for tools that are tagged with the term enumerator. And here we can see all of the tools that have been tagged with that term. Maybe we want to look at the Introduction to Orienteering tool, which is here with its description to download in English or in French. So going back to that main page, remember we have all of these Stellar tools and more to come that are accessible here. Let's look at this in French.
Let's look at our page in French. Here are the training and learning resources for our surveys. At STLR, we have both English and French, and we can see the page. We browse down the option to look at all the tools and the 5 categories that we have used to organize our tools. These are the 5 categories. For instance, let's browse at the tools for the information to browse through the tools. Here are all the tools categorized. And this is the facilitation card with a description, and we can download it both in English and French. And let's go to the main page, and if we click here, we browse down, we see all the tools STLR that we have on the website, and we can share more. We can use the browsing bar to look at some terms, the term survey tagged. We tagged this as survey, the introduction to the phone survey. Here's the tool, the description, and the download option, both in English and French. And if we go to the main page, here are all the tools for you. And now, to go even further in regard to the tools and their development, their use, and the value of these tools, because, well, we've had a collection for a long time, but now we call it STLR to share them with you. I present to you Fiacre Bazier, who is the survey operations for PMA at the ISSP University in Burkina Faso, and talk about your experience in regard to these tools, Bazier. Thank you, Sarah. As Sarah said already, I work at the Ouagadougou University, responsible for the operations and the payment platform for Burkina Faso and Western Africa. And I work at the elaboration and the design of most of the tools that will be presented to you. So I have experience in regard to the training work too and the coordination. And before payment, I worked in the survey coordination department at a national level. But the experience through the payment department, we realized that there were many things we still had to do in order to have quality data. And we needed also programmatic and political tools. In our context, training, even when you work with data and people are trained, the training is just going through the tools in a very light way. But we realized that regarding the nature of the work I was performing, we needed to use the tools of different ministries of health. They needed to use these tools to create their programs, and we needed to guarantee the quality of the data. And now, with the payments, and this is very highly used, we needed to evaluate the performance, for instance, at the Ministry of Health for family planning. So when we collect the data, we need indicators that are sensitive, and we realize that from year to year, the activities go down. So we started wondering, do we have quality data? Can we collect them in the same way, in a proper way? So we needed to eliminate everything that would compromise the quality of data. Most tools contribute to reach our goal. For instance, tool that we have developed, and the goal is to increase the commitment of the collection departments, the collection of data. And so we insisted on the qualities of the people doing the surveys, not only collecting data, they needed to play a more important role. And because they will have an influence in the life of populations. Because When we look at some of the indicators, we need to look further into the data for the programs and our programming. So we have all these issues that we needed to work on. We will need to take a picture. We take a picture. Of course, we go on the field and directly we use a tool to increase their engagement and their commitment and to collect the data. And they have an important influence on the actions of the government and the way they will influence the life of the population. So most tools will contribute to truly improve the quality of the information, because that's important for the trustworthiness of the data and the quality of the data we will handle. There are many other tools whose goal is to improve the quality of the information. But that can be used in many other contexts, not only through surveys, but through government programs and other types of training in regard to the data. And that can help us a great deal in areas where we can use them and apply them for other surveys. And I stop at that. And thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Bazier, for your intervention today, for all the good work you have performed in the improvement of these tools. And because of the Bazier's and Shani's and efforts, as well as our colleagues, we can offer you these beautiful tools. Shani, you are a technical advisor, and Shani will talk about the value of these tools for herself and in the realm of the work she used to do at PMA and how these tools are still useful in her new position, in her new tenure, and in her current tenure. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Zara Bazier. Thank you for your intervention. I will now speak in English, and thank you for following me in the interpretation channel.
So I'm going to give my little talk here in English. And I just want to start off by saying that I really appreciated Bazier's final point there, really on this clear link between high quality data and high quality training via the use of these STLR tools. But I am actually going to transition to talking today about some of these tools' applicability outside of the survey world. So as Sarah has already said, my name is Shani Turk. I'm a technical advisor for family planning and reproductive health at JPIGO. Prior to joining JPIGO, I did work for a number of years on PMA and helped to develop and test many of the training tools and resources that you find on the STLR Toolkit, alongside Bazier, Sarah, Megan, and many others that I see on the call today, which is wonderful to see. Hello, everyone. And I also want to acknowledge with this larger group that I am the facilitator and trainer that I am today, thanks to my time with PMA, thanks to these folks, and especially because I've used these tools heavily. And so I'm really excited to be here, to be part of this launch, to disseminate them to a broader audience. So I am no longer working explicitly in surveys and in data collection every day, all day, like many of you. But I do still lead a number of trainings and workshops, often with diverse participants, folks who are coming to the table with varying levels of knowledge, expertise, diverse attitudes on often fairly stigmatized topics, particularly family planning and abortion. And I do also have the pleasure of still leading some smaller scale studies and evaluations to better understand if JPIGO programming is having its intended impact. And in both of these use cases, I still use these tools and many of these tools regularly. And so I'm happy today to focus on 3 that I know already are up on the website and ready for people's use in both English and French. So I'll talk you through a few of them. The first one is this lovely facilitators card, which I'm going to, there we go. You can hopefully you can kind of see. Obviously also available electronically on the site. But I have it in my wallet and I pull it out every time I need to be reminded of sort of the core principles that I commit to when I show up to be a facilitator. Number 2 on this card is one that I always need as a guiding light, which is to serve the learners first and foremost. Number 3 is really great. So planning extensively and carefully. It's a reminder, especially sort of as I'm starting out in planning facilitation with a group, and it gives me some top line reminders about how to go about doing that. But I also often pull out this card in the middle of a training when things are invariably running behind, because that always happens as best as you plan. And it can be really helpful to sort of bring everybody back together, remind folks and myself of what sort of the most important things are that we need to address with the time remaining. The second tool I'm going to talk about is the participant profile tool or worksheet, which is wonderful for designing for your specific learners' needs and taking into consideration sort of their baseline knowledge from the beginning. So I certainly, as sort of a teacher at heart, I have a tendency to want to just dive into agenda creation and focus on what I want to convey or teach to people. And this tool is a super helpful reminder for me that I actually need to start with knowing my audience and knowing my audience well. And so the tool walks you through structured questions to help you either identify some of these key attributes of your participants or identify the information you don't have yet that you need to go and find. And I have found it to be particularly useful in contexts where we're going to be diving into sensitive subjects like abortion, or when we're working with a wide array of stakeholders and need to be able to design for that full group of perspectives. And so what that might actually mean is I use the workshop the profile tool to be able to tweak some of my learning objectives, depending on sort of what is realistic given baseline knowledge. It might influence also the ways in which I approach facilitation, depending on learning styles, preferences, and motivations for work. And then the third tool that I'll talk about is this tips. Well, actually, it's 2 tools that I think go well hand in hand. Tips for small group engagement and designing for small group engagement. So as facilitators, I know at least for me, I think oftentimes you get to small group work as a part of your larger workshop. And I feel like I can take a breath, maybe catch up on some emails, and just really let folks work independently. But experience has really shown me that small group work needs strong design and structure, and that you also still may need to adapt your approach as you sort of get into the small group work and see how effective it is, the approach that you initially designed, or if it isn't. And so I really love that this tool allows you to have this ready-made list of approaches that I can start or that I can refer back to if things are starting to go off the rails, if my initial design isn't working. And something I've heard from a lot of participants as well is the section on sort of cross-pollination and ideas for stimulating conversation and cross small group learning after they're done with their work has been something that participants have really appreciated for workshops that I have facilitated or led. So similarly to Bazier, I think I could talk for half an hour about these tools and what they have done for me as I have moved on to facilitating different types of workshops and trainings. And I know that there will be many more that are released on the site, and I look forward to seeing those. But I do think I will stop there now to make sure we do have time to get to questions and answers. And I'll just say finally that I have found these tools to be incredibly helpful, obviously even outside the context of the survey world. And I encourage you all to explore, use them, and adapt them for your own purposes. Thanks so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shawnee. So 2 great perspectives. Find them, follow their work. And I think it was wonderful to learn about how not only for quality data, but also for quality training and facilitation wherever we are, these tools, these ideas can help. So thanks to both Bazi and Shani for your interventions today and all of your work on these tools. Okay, we are about to go into Q&A, but before we do, I want to make sure it is clear to all of us how you might learn more. So of course you can go to www.pmadata.org/stellar for all of these tools. But to stay informed about new Stellar tools releases, we have a few options for you. You can follow us on X, formerly Twitter, and Facebook. You can see the handles to the right there. You can also sign up for the PMA newsletter. We will do our best to announce releases of new tools on the PMA newsletter, and you can sign up for that newsletter at pmadata.org. Also, if you would like to ask specific questions as you use these tools, you can email me. I am so excited to hear your questions and to support you as best I can. So we are here for you. Take a screenshot of this, write it down, follow us, join us as you dive into this stellar world. Now we can open it up for some questions. So Bazier and Shani are with us for your questions, as am I. You can use the Q&A function in Zoom to submit or upvote a question. If you go to the bottom of Zoom, there's that little Q&A option next to the chat. I've noticed also we've had some hands that went up. So please also, if you've had your hand up, submit your question in this Zoom Q&A. While we give you a second to do that, I would like to start, Shani and Bazier, with a question that we received as these participants registered in Zoom. We asked them, what questions might you have about Stellar? And there was one that was pretty interesting. Someone asked, how different are these compared to other data collection tools? So Shani or Bazier, if you have any thoughts about how these tools might be different compared to other data collection tools, let us know. Please, Shani.
I was giving it a moment just to see if Bazier had anything that he wanted to add, recognizing there might be a slight lag with the interpretation. But just as maybe he's thinking, I'm wanting a clarification question. Are we talking about data collection tools for PMA, or are we talking about the Stellar tools for training for data collection? I'm presuming the latter, but I want to confirm.
I'm also assuming the latter, but it didn't say.
Okay. Well, I can maybe try to tackle that assuming the latter, I can try to tackle that a little bit. I will say prior to joining PMA, I didn't have a ton of experience working on other large survey platforms, but I did have some experience with smaller scale studies. And as I had said, some sort of smaller scale studies and evaluations that I do in the context of implementation work now with JPEGO. And I will say that in general, I have found that there is a lot of focus when we're looking at a survey to focus on the specific questions, right? Which makes a lot of sense. The goal is to be able to have high quality responses to those questions. And also, I think as survey folks, we can lose sight of some of the environmental pieces that can also really influence the ways in which the questions are asked, how comfortable people feel in responding to those questions, particularly when they are really sensitive questions, or maybe considered sensitive for people who are responding. And I think PMA does a really great job. These tools have done a really great job of helping to address some of those. I don't want to call them soft skills because they are core skills that are necessary for data collectors. but address some of those emotional, social relationship type skills that are absolutely critical to building trust, to finding the right people, making sure you're interviewing the right people, to creating an environment where people in that interview space feel comfortable sharing on some very personal things. And all of that also really contributes to data quality. So I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but just to note that I feel like there's that added benefit that you'll find articulated in some of these tools. And I think there's one in particular that is like the art of being a resident enumerator or being an enumerator that may or may not be available on the site just yet, but is really helpful for thinking about all of the pieces that aren't related specifically to the questionnaire and the questions we're asking, but are really critical for data quality. And je ne sais pas, Basier, si vous avez autre chose à ajouter, j'ai beaucoup parlé.
Basier, do you have anything to add? I think I extended myself.
Well, we'll give Bazier a second for any delays. Bazier, if you have something to add for this question, feel free to come on video. If not, the next question as well.
Oui, bon.
Well, what I can add to what Shani already explained. Personally, there's an experience before PMA and then after PMA, if compared to other surveys that I helped coordinate. The difference to PMA, I presented classical training sessions. Once we would focus on, first we did theoretical work, then we will go into the field. And with these tools, we can see there are many other tools that are not truly focusing on the questionnaire, on the quiz. And they can tackle and look into topics that are more generalized, and they can look more into the reinforcement of capacities and the interview. And I think for most tools, with these tools, we can answer to the person doing the interview, and most of these tools really focus on the means to get rid of all the possible biases that can come out for the and we need to be objective. And the person doing the survey, it helps him a great deal because we are here to take a snapshot. The snapshot is as important on the field. And we cannot underestimate what we see on the field. There's a whole set of tools that focus on that. And we need to get rid of biases. And I think this is a benefit when compared to other training tools that I had already used and that I had already programmed in my past experiences.
Merci, Bazier. Okay. Donc,
let's look at an example, a concrete example. I will do my best to share with you what we're talking about. If we are working on STLR, and we are on the website in French, and we say it would be good to have a set of tools talking about the skills of the person doing the survey. We will explore these tools, and we have spoken about the art of being a resident surveyor. So we click on that, and we have here a summarized explanation of the tool, the explanation how we can explore and train in regard to the skills surveyors must have, both male and female. And we provide more details on these tools. But of course, we also want to download it and look at it in detail. If we download it in French, there you go. We will now see what it's all about in here. And some people have asked about how to know how to use these tools. There are two answers. First answer, browse through the tools, download the information, browse through the tool and look at all the elements that could be useful to you, that are not useful to you, and adopt the tool so that it can be as useful as it can in your situation. So you can browse through it to see what's useful to you. And we need to remind you that in the tool itself, here's the description of the tool we also explain. For PowerPoint, we have slides that can be useful to you. And sometimes there are even some activities here. We see there's a good resident surveyor in the case of PMA, that we have a good resident surveyor that plays 4 main roles. Representative, she's a surveyor, she listens, and so we ask a volunteer to review each scenario and putting on the different hats and playing different roles to see how this can be perceived in her field work. So here are some little tips. Here are some descriptions, but we also have some notes down below. We have some explanation notes down below on the screen to see how to adapt and to adapt to that material. If you are not part of PMA, you will be able to hide the PMA logo. If you are not resident surveyors, if you are only surveyors, you can also change the text. You can edit that. You can change everything to downloading the materials to serve your purposes. So I hope that you see clearly what all these tools are all about, how you can learn how to use them. And we urge you to adopt and adapt them. I think we have a time for one more question. And I can suggest that we can take the following question. Voilà. Shani Bazier, I will give you some time to explain your thoughts, but we have a question from Leon Daising, who is saying, thank you very much for this beautiful presentation. But how can we put how come you put these tools in the hands of the audience for free, and in other places you have to pay? So what's the motivation? What's the motivation for us to share these tools? I have a few words to say about that. What's our motivation to provide these tools at no cost? Bazier,
Oui, vas-y.
Et bon,
I would say
je dirais que comme on l'a dit, c'est
it's
un
a
travail qui
work
s'est
that we've been doing
des années
for a great many
et
years,
qui a été
but
consolidé
that's
à
taken years to be
plusieurs années.
consolidated.
Et pour
And
nous,
to us,
c'est également
it is a way to leave
de laisser un
a
héritage
legacy
pour que, voilà,
for all those
voilà, pour ceux
who don't know this.
ne le savent pas, la, la plateforme paiement
This
englobe
payment
pays.
payment
Les données
is
sont de
involved
plus en
in
plus largement,
many countries,
sont très utilisées,
and
sont de plus en plus
they're used more and more, and they have a great impact in in politics, and they have some impacts, and they also
c'est grâce aussi
have to do with everything that has been mobilized, all the means that have been implemented to train the surveyors.
pour poursuivre cette lancée, en
And
fait,
more and more
de plus en plus les données
data
soient utilisées et
have to be
qu'ils aient un
used
impact sur la
to
vie des
improve
Je
the
pense que
life
c'est un
of
des projets
populations.
d'expérience
This
qui
stems from my
est arrivé à
experience
terme.
at PMA to
Il y
have
a
a
des bases de
database
données qui sont
that can be
partagées. Il y a également
shared,
les moyens par lesquels ces bases de données ont
and the
été
way these
mises en
databases have
place.
been
Je
acquired
pense notamment
through
la formation
in everything that has
les différentes
supported all
formations.
the
Donc,
trainings
c'est aussi une façon de, voilà,
and all the work
de
that has been
reconnaître
done.
tout ce travail qui a été fait
And
et
this will
de
keep
continuer à
on
avoir
having
un
an
impact,
impact,
pas
not
seulement à
only
travers
through
ce travail, mais
PMI,
aussi à travers
but maybe
d'autres
many
initiatives
other
que nous pouvons mener.
projects and many other activities that we are leading.
Merci
Thank you,
beaucoup.
Chani. A few
quelques
thoughts?
pensées de ton côté?
Oh, thank you for the
Merci beaucoup
question.
pour la question. Et je pense que
Bazier
Bazier
has
assez
said
bien
it so
rejoint
well,
toute la
and
majorité
that's also
de
what
ce
I
que je
wanted
voulais dire
to
aussi.
say.
Je vais
And
ajouter
just to
aussi
add,
que
I
je
think
pense,
that
et
Phil
je pense que
also
Phil
mentioned
fait
that
référence à ça aussi du
when he made
de
his
son
own
introduction.
presentation, there is a
Il y a
gap, a
vraiment une
true
lacune
gap in regard
et un
to
manque de
the
disponibilité
availability
de
of
ces
these
genres de ressources
resources,
selon moi.
not only
Non
for
seulement
good
pour
data collection,
pendant
the
toute la durée des
training,
formations
and
sur comment bien traiter les
also
données, mais aussi
for the
pour
workshops
les
and
ateliers
the
et les
training
formations dans le
workshops
cadre de
for the
l'ISLR.
implementation
Mais
of
donc
these
pour moi,
tools.
je
I'm
suis
not
plus
working for
d'accueillement, donc c'est
PMA.
pas moi qui
I
sors
cannot
disponible, mais
make these tools
j'adhère
available, but I
cette
fully
session
adhere
et toutes les
to
idées que les
these
organisateurs
activities.
apportaient
Thank you to all the
parce que je
organizers for
pense que
doing
ça
that, because
répond bien
this
à
will
cette
help
lacune, cette
solve
insatisfaction
this
d'intervenir.
gap. We will be
Vraiment
able
dans
to
cette
close the gap.
Merci.
Thank you. I totally
Je suis
agree.
totalement d'accord. Et c'est un
This is
bébé
a
qui
baby
berce
that was
en
cradled
communauté.
in our community,
C'est
the
vraiment,
PMA, the
et c'est toujours la
collaborators
recherche de
offering these
d'autres outils, mais comme
tools,
c'est des
tools
outils qui ont
that
été
were
développés
developed
depuis
for
presque une
about
dizaine
10,
d'années,
for over
c'est
10
aussi,
years.
ce sont
These
des
are
outils
tools that
qui
have
viennent de
been
organisations qui s'engagent
now
maintenant avec d'autres
that are being used in
organisations
many
et qui continuent à
organizations
utiliser
that
ces outils
have been
à leur
contributed by
bénéfice,
many
à leur
people.
donner la
So
valeur.
hence the
Et
value.
de mon
And one
côté
thing
aussi,
I
la
wanted
solution que
to
j'allais
add,
ajouter, c'est
sometimes
que parfois,
we
très souvent,
underestimate
on
the
sous-estime
true value,
la
the actual
valeur
value
d'un
of a
apprentissage
well-prepared,
bien
well-structured
préparé dès le plus tôt
training session to help
aider les
people
gens
to
à
learn,
apprendre,
even
y compris
ourselves.
soi-même.
This is a
C'est un
gift to
cadeau pour
people,
la
to
personne,
the
pour le
groups we're
groupe
working
avec
with,
lequel il
and
travaille, pour les gens
for
que cette
in
personne est
these
supposée de
and the
servir dans
purposes we
leur
need
travail.
to serve.
Donc, non seulement les outils par rapport aux
Not only
aux
the tools for the
enquêteurs,
surveyors, but the
mais aussi
tools
les
for the
outils pour la
facilitation
bonne
and the good
facilitation et les
design of the
sessions
training sessions,
formatives
and
sont aussi
tools
des
that
outils qui vous aident
specifically will
spécifiquement
help
à
us
appuyer
uh,
l'apprentissage
help
des
our
collaborateurs.
collaborators in their learning curves.
Quoi que
So it's
ce
learning that
apprentissage
can
qui peut
also
aussi donner
provide
de la
value to all
valeur
your
à
efforts.
tous vos
So
efforts.
for this
Donc,
reason
c'est pour
too,
cette raison
we
aussi
make these
qu'on rend
tools
des choses
available
accessibles
at
et
no
on vous
cost. So
encourage non
not
seulement
only
à les
adopt them, but
consommer
also
et à
adapt
les
them and
adapter,
share
mais
them
aussi
too.
à les
So
partager.
thank you so
Donc,
much
merci
for
beaucoup
joining us
d'avoir
for
répondu
the
pour ce
official
lancement
launching
officiel
of
du
the
partage des outils
STLR
de sauvegarde de PMA.
tools of PMA. Follow us on X, Facebook, and you will get our newsletters, and you can contact us once you start using these beautiful tools. Thank you, all those who have really made a great effort to design and share these tools. Have a happy day, and we shall meet again to keep talking about the STLR tools, and have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much for joining.